Welcome to our April meeting of the Astrobiology Science Communication Guild. Today we have a really interesting opportunity for you all, sort of our first real professional development opportunity from the Lunar and Planetary Institute, LPI, and the REACH group, and Christine Shupla, who is with us, will present that opportunity to how you can engage in culturally inclusive planetary engagement. But before I pass the floor over to her, I just want to do a brief intro, which is more a recap than an intro. I'm going to share some slides from our February and March science activation team speakers, because those opportunities are still very much on the table for anyone who may have missed those meetings and wants to join those opportunities. So in February, we had a presentation from a science activation group called Earth to Sky. And before I move any further, let me just remind everyone that science activation is our NASA partner, who the Guild has partnered with, because they are the branch of NASA groups that do formal and informal education all over the country. They work with museums, classrooms, national parks, as you'll see in a moment, to do all sorts of really interesting science communication. And so we are bringing opportunities to you monthly from science activation teams. So in February, we had Earth to Sky, a group who participates in climate and earth science with national parks. And they spoke to us about some opportunities that they have. And first, just a blurb about who they are. They work with the National Park Service and other similar agencies to enable and encourage informal educators and science communicators to access basically NASA science, NASA climate and earth science in their work. And they largely work in the field in those national parks. And so the opportunities that they presented specifically included, first, if you want to join their community, if you, for example, do field work, or if you're interested in, if you do research that's climate science related, you can join their community. There's the website. They're open to webinar presentations from you all. There's a little bit of information on that. They have a series called Climate in Your Pocket. And if you do field work somewhere relevant that visitors go to, that's near a national park or just a place that would be interesting for visitors to see, and you could maybe work with some of the earth science educators at those sites, you can connect to Genevieve de Messières and Chris White, and there are their email addresses. And Mike or I will drop those email addresses also for you in the chat. And the second opportunity we had in our March meeting was from the science activation group called Infiniscope. And we had Ariel Anbar, the PI, and Joe Tamer, the deputy PI. And Joe is actually here with us today. Hi, Joe. Present on some ways that you could get involved with Infiniscope. I could read the slide, or Joe, if you want to jump in and tell us that in a sentence or two what Infiniscope is and how Guild members can get involved, feel free to just do that. And I've got the slides for you up here already. So
Sure. So really high level, Infiniscope is both a web portal for NGSS aligned lessons using NASA science that are digital and adaptive and really cool. There's also a community of practice that surrounds it. So our Infiniscope team does a lot of cultivating that community, teaching teachers how to use this in their classrooms and how to create their own lessons. Then we also are recruiting subject matter experts to help us design the learning experiences themselves. So those are the kind of three ways. If you want to use anything that we have, that's freely available through the portal. You can also enroll. It's free to enroll. And then you can keep grades and merge them with your students who you teach. That's free as well. If you want to be a subject matter expert, we have stipends available for your involvement in time and helping us to design these things. There are a bunch of workshops this summer. I don't have the dates in front of me, but if you go to the portal, infiniscope.org, you'll have the latest information that I don't even have, because I've got a great team that does that. How is that, Seth? Is that good?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you jumped to the
Oh, there you go. Boom.
the summer 23 workshops, those ones.
Yes, there you go. So those are the dates. As you can see, I don't do them myself. So the team knows the dates and has been planning. So
Yeah, so late June and mid-July on virtual tours, creating virtual tours and creating your own adaptive lessons. So those are some opportunities to work with this team. Also, let me just say that you all presented opportunities on how folks could work with you as scientists to do subject matter expertise consulting on, yes, advising Infiniscope on the lessons, doing professional development with the teachers who use them. If you have any ideas on lessons, you can collaborate. And as a SME, you would be eligible if you're any of the following in this list. You don't have to be just sort of a PhD holding, mid-career scientist. Some of you ask me if you're eligible for some of these opportunities as students, like graduate students and postdocs, and the answer is yes, you are. And did you want to say anything about the Mars sample return VFT project?
I'm headed to JPL Thursday and Friday for a virtual reality Mars terrain building workshop, and I'll know more after that, because it will be in the summer. We're hoping to get 5 or 6 subject matter experts to help us with a main VFT virtual field trip, plus 5 supporting lessons that we built by teachers. So we're still figuring that out. It'll probably be 3 days in July for a workshop, and plans are coming together for it now. This will be a suite of learning experiences we build over the course of a year from summer 23 to summer 24. So if your interests align there, let me know. So
great. Thanks, Joe. And thanks for allowing me to put you on the spot like that. And there is a form that you all shared, and Mike just dropped that form in the chat. It's a Google form that you can fill out if you want to work together with Infiniscope in any of these capacities. So definitely reach out to them if you're interested, and they will follow up with you. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to present from the last 2 months. I hope you all continue to take advantage of these great opportunities, even if they're from last month or the month before. I am going to now hand the floor over to Christine Shupla, the education manager at LPI. Is that correct? At LPI's Lunar and Planetary Institute. Christine, I'm going to let you do your intro, because I think that would be great if you can introduce yourself and your team members, and then take it away.
Absolutely. I'm the science engagement manager here at the Lunar and Planetary Institute, and among my many hats, I'm a co-investigator for Planetary Reach. Kenda and Andy were also planning on being with us here today, but something came up for both of them, so it's just me. Sorry about that, folks. So we wanted to let you know a little bit about culturally inclusive planetary engagement. We're doing workshops on this topic as part of Planetary Reach, and you are all invited to join us. So let's go ahead and share a little bit about this. So my plan is to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about this, about Planetary Reach, about our workshops, and then we're going to do an interactive activity together and a discussion. So please be prepared to post things in chat. Please be prepared to ask questions. And at any point during this, if you have a question that you want to pop in and say, unmute yourself and bring it up, please do pause and we will handle them as they come in. So no need to wait until the end. So Planetary Reach is an effort to prepare planetary scientists working together with informal educators in workshops to engage Black and Latinx youth and their families in planetary science and exploration, including astrobiology. So everyone here is welcome to join as part of this. These workshops on culturally inclusive planetary engagement are being held about 6 times a year. We're doing 6 over the summer and fall, and then next year we'll be doing 6 more, and the following year we'll be doing 3 more. So lots of opportunities for all of you to participate. We do have travel stipends available as well. So even if we're not holding one nearby where you are welcome to apply, and we have money to help you get there. These workshops are aligned with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And we're creating this model, really. This model is informed by literature as well as the lived experiences and evaluation of the team members and our external evaluators. Part of the reason behind this, planetary science and astrobiology are severely underrepresented in terms of Black and Latinx scientists. The research, including research by one of our co-investigators, Dr. Edgar Rivera Valentin, has demonstrated this. There's been some increase over the years in terms of Hispanic people who identify as either Hispanic or Latinx. There really hasn't been any increase by the Black and African American communities in planetary science or astrobiology relative to the increases that we're seeing in STEM jobs in general. A Native American and Alaska Native are also really underrepresented. We do know many other science activation programs who are specifically already working with those audiences. So for us, we really wanted to target Hispanic and Black or African American because those have not been as significantly targeted by as many different projects. We have an intentional focus on this, and at the end of each workshop, so each workshop is 2 days, and the end of it, the following day, so Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, we hold an event, a public event at a venue near the workshop. Although we try to partner with informal educators who are already specifically working with kids and families who may be underrepresented. Often we partner with Boys and Girls Clubs of America, for instance. That event, all of the workshop attendees are expected to attend and get a chance to practice the strategies as well as activities during that event. So it's a fundamental part of what we're doing. Our focus is engaging on diverse audiences in these out-of-school time settings like libraries, Boys and Girls Clubs, after-school programs, museums. We are trying to create more equitable and inclusive interactions between the scientists and these diverse communities to inspire future STEM professionals. We are also attempting to address some of the themes that were brought up in the State of the Profession under the recent Planetary Science and Astrobiology Decadal Survey. Our workshops back in last year were created with input from our team members. We have a good variety of team members with expertise in planetary science, astrobiology, as well as informal education. But we also have brought in external DEIA researchers to also provide us input. And of course, we have our evaluators who were attending each one and giving us feedback real time on the fly, as well as after the workshops. We are intentionally including Black and Latinx voices in the co-creation of these workshops, and future workshops are going to continue to mirror this, but we're continuing to learn more and tweak them each time. Here's some of our objectives and outcomes. We invite all of the attendees to share their expertise, to self-reflect, and to learn and grow together. And so we're trying to explore the importance of building these partnerships. That's a fundamental part of it. It's not an external group of people flying in to save the day. No, we are working together with people in the community, the partnerships with informal educators within the community, as well as scientists within those communities, to share our knowledge together. And those partnerships, we think, are fundamental to everything. The subject matter experts, informal educators, and then we're learning some of the evidence-based, culturally relevant authentic approaches to nurture these connections. And these connections aren't necessarily just with the community, but with individuals. As we're having discussions with kids, adults, parents, it's not just about us telling them what we think they need to know. It's about building that relationship, building connections to learn more about what their interests are, what they want to know, where they want to go, what they want to explore, mentally as well as physically in terms of hands-on activities. And we want to practice these through a culturally inclusive lens. So these are some of the different things that we're focused on, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of what's involved in the workshop itself. We try to cover some different topics. One of the topics is this idea of partnerships. And one of the topics that we try to address is biases, recognizing and addressing biases. And this is an uncomfortable topic. Many of these conversations can be uncomfortable, and we come with awareness of that. And try to create a safe space where people can share what they're thinking and their problems and their concerns. And then we also try to approach it through an asset-based approach. So instead of looking at where an audience might not have experience or knowledge and focusing on where the lack is, we want to focus on what an audience brings, what an individual brings, what they bring with them, and use that instead. Here's some of the workshops that are coming up this year. We're going to be doing one in New Orleans very, very soon in June, as well as at SETI in June. We're going to be doing one in August in Florida, in Miami, Florida, in September in New York, and October in Boulder, Colorado, and November in Puerto Rico. The applications for most of these are open now, so please feel free to apply. So let's give a little bit more of an example here. We're going to spend maybe 10 minutes thinking about this asset-based approach and having some conversations and then talking about it with respect to an activity. We're going to model a little bit of a hands-on activity. And Margaret, thank you. You've posted a question that I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a second to answer that. So is it only for Black and Latinx? What about other groups? These other groups, all groups are important, right? All groups are important. Our focus is intentionally on how to create an inclusive environment in terms of engagement for Black and Latinx audiences, not to exclude other groups, but because that focus is necessary in order to really delve in deeply. And as I mentioned, there are Indigenous, Joe, help me, are there 5, 6 different projects within science activation who are focused on Indigenous Native Americans? Is that right?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it is a handful. I think 5 or 6 is about the right number. Yeah, I can think of 4 off the top of my head. So focusing on concerns about Indigenous groups is already a part of several other projects. I'm not aware of any other project that is focused solely on Black or Latinx, although many of them include that. So Joe's group is already including that in a lot of what they do, but they're very broad and they include that as a group that they are particularly looking at in terms of how they use Infiniscope, for instance. But solely to the exclusion of other things, I think we're the only ones for Black and Latinx. And so that's why we picked that. Also for us, it's sort of near and dear to our hearts. We're here in Houston, which is predominantly, Houston, I think, is already a majority city. We have large populations of both Black and Latinx communities here in Houston. We've got people from Asia, Southeast Asia, and Africa, immigrants, and many, many, many other places as well. But it's near and dear to our hearts. Plus, one of our co-investigators happens to be a Black astrobiologist, and one of our co-investigators happens to be a Latinx planetary scientist, and 2 of them are. So we really kind of wanted to focus on that. That doesn't mean that by attending, you won't learn things that can be applied to many other audiences. What is a best practice for one audience? Best practices are
there is no one size fits all. And even if I say, here's one thing that you need to be aware of if you are working with people in Puerto Rico only, doesn't mean that that it applies to everybody in Puerto Rico, and it also doesn't mean that that you can't take the fundamental idea and the strategy and apply it well in other places. So, great question. I would like to spend just a couple seconds here, well, maybe 1 minute, talking with all of you and hear from you. When I say an asset-based approach, what does that mean? Does anyone have any ideas that they'd like to either unmute and share or put in the chat box? What does it mean to be an asset-based approach to engaging a group of people or an individual, as opposed to the opposite is a deficit-based, where you are looking at where they are lacking, where the challenges are preventing them? What does that mean to you? Does anyone want to think or share a little bit about it? And to make this a little, thank you, Bradley, that you're leveraging what's available in the community and focusing on what they have. Absolutely, focusing on what they have, on points of pride, points of experience, points of interest, their expertise. Yes, absolutely, honor their lived experiences and build from them, build from what their own lived experiences. Absolutely.
Christine, do you mind if I just speak up? Because
please do.
I'm on a government computer and I cannot find a raise hand. Have you ever heard of the MSI Exchange? And I can put the link.
Please do put the link in and share a little bit more for me and for everybody else.
So I'm at NASA Ames, but I've been using the MSI Exchange to try to find groups to partner with. And what I love about their asset-based approach is that they list all the capabilities at an institution, at a minority serving institution. So you know if they have, like special antennae, or if they have a special focus on geology or whatever, or if they're accredited. And so it gives a spin to it. This is what they are bringing to the plate, and it's really, I think, a very respectful way to approach, connecting.
Absolutely, great examples, Melissa. Thank you, and thank you for sharing the link too. And Margaret mentioned maybe including their histories, a little bit more about their history, and empowering them very much, Joe, to co-create with us, empowering them, leverage their perspective. So all of these things absolutely are aspects of what an asset-based approach is. So one of the things that we've been working on together and working on in the workshops is how we work with partners to incorporate that asset-based approach in our public engagement efforts, so it doesn't become a case of somebody flying in and saying, I'm going to come save the day. No, we are working together and doing all of these things that you have just shared, honoring their lived experiences, empowering them to co-create with us, including aspects of their history, maybe leveraging what's available in the community and what they have. And their interests, all of that. What we are part of what some strategies are for an asset-based approach based on the research out there. I'm going to share just a few things, a few of the strategies that we have found in the research literature in terms of engagement and interaction and education. One asset-based approach is planned for and supports sense-making experiences where they can use what they know and their interest and try to make sense of things themselves instead of us telling them something. Another one is to demonstrate the relevance of the activities to their lives, build connections to their culture, incorporate examples from diverse cultures and programs. And then a third strategy in the research literature says to respect the cultural values and norms. So, for instance, the role of family is very strong in certain cultures, and respecting that and being prepared for that. So these are 3 strategies. There's lots more, but rather than overburdening us with all of that, what we're going to do now is we're going to do an activity together And as we're doing it, I'm going to be inviting you to share your thoughts and your ideas. And then at the end of the activity, I'd like us to unpack how we can make this activity more asset-based. What else can we do to incorporate an audience's, our partners' reflections, thoughts, lived experiences, interests, histories, and empower them to include their perspective more richly. So the activity that we're going to do together is called Searching for Life. It has about 4 different names, and so you've probably seen this before. And this activity is about discussing how life is defined, conducting a simple experiment to look for signs of life in different soil samples. The original version of this one was in a NASA booklet that was prepared in part by our partners over at NASA Johnson Space Center Ares. And I think it was originally called Looking for Life. And so we're going to do this together virtually. And as we're doing it, input, please provide input, ask questions. I will ask questions. I'd like to hear your questions, your thoughts, and your answers as well. Not just to my questions, but to each other's questions. So the first part I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily stop sharing. Let me see if I can find, there it is. It's over there. I'm going to temporarily stop sharing, and I'm going to let you see the experiment by doing a little bit of a rotation here. And it's a little too bright, so I'm going to turn off the lights here for a second, turn them down, and I knew I was going to forget to do that. I am going to fix the background so that the background's not interfering. Sorry about that. None. There we go. Now you can see my messy office. So I have 3 samples here. And these 3 samples, you can see I've labeled A, B, and C. And in each of these samples, I have some different ingredients. So I'm going to bring a sample A up here to the camera for you to see clearly. And I'm going to stir it up a little bit. In fact, I'm going to use a coffee stirrer. So you can see some different things here in it. And I'm going to use that chemical sensor, my nose, and tell you what I smell. I can tell you how things feel in terms of heat and temperature and other things throughout this. So please feel free to ask me questions about what you would like to observe about each of these samples. Here's sample A. Here is sample B. And again, I will let you look at it, and I will stir it up here a little bit so you can see it more carefully or closely. And here is sample C. Let you take a look at it. We are going to be looking in each of these for evidence of life. And we're preparing it. You can see from the top down, what does the side look like? That's a great question. So here's the side for C. Sorry about the glare. The side for C. Here's the side for B. Again, and the side for A. What else would you like to know right now before? And what we're going to be doing is looking for signs of life. And we know that all life needs a source of energy to grow and to change and everything else. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to add sugar to each of these. And I'm also going to add all life needs water. So I've got some nice warm water that I'm going to add to each of these as well. And we're going to look for evidence of life. And then while we're waiting for that evidence of life, we can talk more about what characteristics of life exist out there and what we might be looking for that evidence of life. How many of you have done this activity before? Have a bunch of you done it before? Joe hasn't. Margaret hasn't either. Okay. Some of you might have seen this before. Svet has actually done it virtually with me before for other programs. It's been a while. So I'm going to add some sugar to A and to B and to C. Any other questions right now what we're doing? Mike hasn't seen this one before either. I need to know how to pronounce your name. Is it Junelli?
It's Janelli. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelli. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me know. So I've put some sugar in each of them, and I'm going to, yeah, the glare is just making them. They're all kind of similar looking. If you notice something that you want to point out in any of these, feel free to point it out. And again, if you have questions, I'm mixing up the sugar a little bit. Mixing up the sugar a little bit. Does anyone have any other questions or comments so far? And you are all welcome to share your cameras if you'd like. But you don't have to, but it does make it easier for me to see what your reactions and your questions might be. Hi, Jessica. Have you seen this activity before? I can't hear you. Are you on mute? So for some reason, Jessica, I didn't hear you. But okay, so here is A, and I'm going to add water up to there. And you might have seen something there. You might have seen. What are you observing? How would you describe what you're seeing? And Margaret asked, Margaret, you're in terms of your messages to me, they're all individuals, so the others don't get to see your questions. Asked about the size of the particles. A had some larger things in it, right? A had something different in it that was larger. You are exactly right. A had some larger chunks that were kind of white. So that's what's happened with A so far. Great observations. What did we see? How would you describe what we just saw there? And does anyone want me to tell them a little bit more about anything, how anything smells or feels or anything else? And Jessica hasn't seen this before either. Oops, I'm spilling water. Sorry. Okay. I see a few bubbles right now, not as many. You could ask, especially if you've got younger kids, did it seem warm when the bubbling occurred? The water itself is warm. It didn't feel any warmer than the water itself. I'm going to add a little bit more so that there's still some water on top. And it's still bubbling, but not as much. A little intermittent geysers. Smells. Not really much of a smell for this one. I don't smell anything for this one. For this one smells like bread. B smells like bread. And C, let's go ahead and do C here. Little bit of bubbles there that stopped almost immediately. Well, there's a couple more. A few bubbles here and there for C. Not a lot. C doesn't smell like anything. Before the water, I didn't smell anything from any of them. So this is what it looks like right now. And while we're looking at this and waiting to see what happens as things might change, let's talk a little bit. So this is an astrobiology thing. What are the characteristics of life? What does life need? What are the characteristics, and what might we be looking for if we're looking for evidence of life? So let's start. What is life? How would you each describe what life is or what it needs? And or maybe how would you describe it to other people, or how would your kids describe it even? Some sort of genetic information that's passed on through reproduction. So life reproduces and the genetic living things grow. They need energy. They absolutely awesome. I already gave away a couple of things, right? I said that they needed water, or they need some sort of fluid to be able to reproduce, and they need a source of energy, as you all just said. It takes in something, it uses it, and it produces some sort of waste. So we need to find ways to kind of leave out things like computer viruses, which are not alive, but they can reproduce. And they need a source of electricity or some sort of energy. So we need to find ways to kind of fine tune this, right? This is something that doesn't get discussed a lot in most classes. Not everybody's really aware of how you define what life is. These are great definitions, though. Takes in something, uses it, and produces some kind of waste. So like 1 or 2 minutes have gone by. What are you noticing for A? Are you noticing, did we see any evidence of life? Learned something way back in 6th grade. Yeah, so life produces waste. It metabolizes resources to reproduce. They grow, they need energy. One definition that I've heard that I really like is that life does something and keeps doing it. This did something. It made a lot of bubbles. Did it keep doing it? I still see a couple little bubbles, not much. Again, I don't really smell anything. This. This did something. Is it still doing something?
Yes, it looks like it's still doing something, making
It's
bubbles.
still doing something. Would bubbles, evidence of life, be bubbles from respiration? Could be. You have to rule out chemical reactions. But this is definitely doing something, and it's still doing it. It's making bubbles, it's blowing bubbles, and it's got quite a head of foam on it. That is eventually going to grow up. Oh, I should have probably put less of everything in this one. And then C. Not really much evidence of anything from C. So which one of these has evidence of life? Jessica's holding up 2 fingers. B might have evidence of life. It's doing something and it's still doing it, right? Does B remind anyone of anything? Anything you might have experienced in the past yourselves? A chocolate milkshake. I don't think I'd want to drink it, but yeah, it's, and it still smells quite strongly of, actually, it's more than bread now. It did smell like bread earlier. Now it almost even has sort of a, it almost smells a little bit like beer to me. So, I'm going to turn the camera around, turn back on the lights. Okay. All righty, and I'm going to start sharing my screen again, and we can talk a little bit more about all this. So the activity is called Searching for Life. Looks like a fermentation process. That's great. I was starting to smell something that smelled a little bit like fermentation to me, which surprised me, because it doesn't always smell like that. I'm surprised that it's time that it is. You can share things about what life needs. It needs water, needs energy, extracts energy, it grows, it changes. There was something about genetic material or carbon chemistry or something. The kids might say something about having a skin to protect itself, or a wall or a membrane. I saw waste, and maybe adaptation could be something that. So all of these things could be things that the kids could say, but that might come from whoever you're talking with, what they know. But I want to use just a few minutes now to think about this activity. How can we make something like this activity? Oh, and the answer, A had crushed Alka-Seltzer in it. Those white chunks that you saw were crushed Alka-Seltzer. Be careful not to get the kind that's like lemon flavored or something, because then there will be a strong like lemony odor that you may not want. B had yeast in it. And I did find some yeast that wasn't expired, and it worked quite well. And see, all three just had sand in them as a baseline. So, and try to find yeast that hasn't expired. Try to make sure that whatever you're mixing them in, that the sand hasn't already been sterilized with something like bleach or something that's going to kill the yeast before it grows, because I've done that before. So based on some of the questions and the comments in terms of strategies that we had earlier about making something asset-based. So one of the aspects of making something asset-based is making it relevant to the audience, their knowledge, their experiences, inviting their input, inviting them to participate, and to co-create or co-design or make sense of the activity themselves. What strategies did we do? What strategies could we do better? How could we improve something like this activity to make it more asset-based if you are engaging an audience? What are your thoughts on that? And it could be anything. It can be something that you saw that we did do, something that we could improve on. Ideas of ways to engage the audience and what their knowledge, their skills, their sense-making interests are. A giant sandbox. Tell them to search for life using a giant sandbox. You can expand it and have them look for evidence of life in the local area. What indoor versus outdoor evidence of life? Yeah, doing something inside and then outside. Depending on how old the kids are, you could ask them for some suggestions of things that they know aren't alive that move or whatever. Joe.
I was going to say, you could ask them to think about places where you think there is no life, and then have them go test to see if it's there, because that's always surprising to kids. Like, oh, well, there can't be life near a volcano. Yeah, there can, right? There can't be life on the bottom of the ocean floor. Yeah, there can, right? So,
Right. Absolutely. All great ideas. one thing, one of our scientists and I did an event where we were talking about life in different places here on Earth, and we did some analogies. We had a Star Wars planet for each of the analogies. It was at a science fiction event, and so we had them roll dice, and each of the dice had a question, and then each side of it, they were big boxes, had pictures of some different Star Wars planets and different life that lived on those planets. And we talked about the analogies, and that could be combined with this. So something, if you're at a Star Wars convention, if you're at some place where people already know a topic like Star Wars, that might be something of interest to them. So what assets might Black or Latinx audiences, communities, groups have, and how can we plan and design events that build on their assets? So, earlier there was a comment about the MSI exchange and using the assets that a university has, and building upon those. Whether it's a particular type of laboratory equipment or something like that. Think about how we can plan on the activities, but also how we design an event with them that builds on their assets. Any suggestions? Hillary said, at Svet, do you want to say anything or share anything about any of this? Or leave it up to the others. So one of the things that we try to do, specific ecosystems in Puerto Rico, awesome, that are unique to that area. Use those as examples if you're doing things in PR. Awesome. Wonderful. Yeah. So if there are specific types of life in a particular area that the kids, the communities are already aware of, specific ecosystems, that's great. That's brilliant. One of the things that we try to do in terms of our events is we try to go where the audience is. Use the facilities, the infrastructure, what already is there, instead of telling them or asking them to leave that area that they're comfortable with, that they're familiar with, to come to us. Going to them is a sign of that reciprocity of partnership and heading to where they are and working with them. So the very first one that we did the workshop at ASU over where Joe is, in partnership with Joe's group and with Scope. And then, but then the event that we had at a school, a public school out in West Phoenix, and went to where they are because the parents and the kids were very comfortable going to that school. That's a place where they felt safe. They had community, and we had some of the teachers there, not to do the work of the activities, but to welcome the kids and make them feel like they were part of it instead of just having all these strangers showing up, which worked quite nicely too. So these are some of the types of questions that we delve into in the workshop. And we do a lot of hands-on activities, but we're thinking about ways that we use the activities and the resources and the planning to really reach an audience, to use their assets, to partner with them, and think about the biases that we ourselves might have and how we might prepare ourselves and address those as we plan things. I'm just about running out of time here, so I wanted to share our team. We have a wonderful team, and we would be delighted to have all of you please join us at some of the workshops coming up this year or next year when your schedule permits. We would love to see you, have your voices, your thoughts, your ideas, and please share it with your partners and your friends and colleagues as well. I will put the website here in the link, and Svet, I will hand it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine. That was really fun and that was really engaging. I'm hoping you all enjoyed the hands-on activity there as well. I am going to quickly launch a poll to see what your feedback is on this opportunity. You may be interested in engaging with the REACH team. And we will leave that on for a few moments while we take any other questions or have any other thoughts. Really, what I'd like to do at the end of this meeting is just open the floor up to you all, whether you have any thoughts, questions, feedback for Christine specifically on the REACH team, or if anyone has any other items they'd like to share, or just questions in general, guild-related items, or if anyone wants to, has not done a new member intro and would like to do that. We always welcome those. I see Junieli has her hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, yes. I just
Hi.
want to thank you for talking about this, Christine, and sharing the hands-on activity. And yeah, and I'm really interested in this opportunity. I was just wondering, so you mentioned there's like funding available. So how, if I were interested in attending one of these, like what would the time commitment look like, and what kind of funding and what that funding would cover for this?
Unmute myself here. So the workshop itself is usually 2 days plus the half-day event. So the commitment really is for 2.5 days plus travel time if you are traveling to attend it. The funding is in the form of a travel stipend. Sometimes if we have enough, we'll also offer participation stipends. So if you are traveling by plane to get there and staying in a hotel, we usually offer about $1,500 for the travel stipend. And if we have enough money left over from the stipends where we can offer everybody $100 or $200 just for participating, we'll do that as well. The stipends are, you fill out a form online, and then after the workshop, you'll get a check, basically. Depends on whether we've arranged for the checks to be printed in advance and we take them and hand them out during the workshop, or some, but that's rare. Most of the time they get mailed about 2 weeks later. And the stipends can go to anyone who's able to accept a stipend. Civil servants usually can't. And if you're working for an organization that is already paying for your travel, they're probably not going to let you accept a stipend. But yeah, does that answer the question?
Yes. Yeah, I guess I'm a graduate student right now, so I was just wondering, so I guess I would be able to receive a stipend. Okay.
Yes, we would love for you to attend, and you would be very much eligible for a stipend. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. All right. I think almost everyone participated in the poll. 90% of you have participated. So I'm going to give it one more moment if anyone else wants to participate. And in the meantime, in the interest of the few minutes we have left in this meeting, I just wanted to highlight a couple of other resources that you may or may not know about. I posted links in the chat to our Slack page, where we now have a member bios channel. So join in the conversation, add your member bio, please, and see what comes out of those discussions. If you are not yet on our guild team roster, please add yourself and make sure your info is correct. I posted the link to that. And by the way, we're going to have, we're launching a new guild website, and it is going to have a link to the team roster. So if there's any information in there that you would prefer not to be visible, please let me know. We can always edit the settings on that. And if you've already participated in a guild or related outreach opportunity, please tell us about it. We have a reporting tool survey that I've also linked in the chat. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. And Hillary, I hope you captured that. Unless anybody else wants to share, ask, discuss anything, I will say thank you so much to Christine for presenting on this really great opportunity. And we hope to see some of you at these workshops. And thank you all for participating in our April meeting.